Thank you for joining another episode of Sideline Stories. I'm your host, Naomi Grey, and today I'm joined by the lovely Samantha Rivera of Fox 5 San Diego. Sam, how are you doing? And thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I am doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of this interview, you recently made a bi-coastal move from Chicago to San Diego for your new gig. I want to know, how are you settling in?
Yeah, so I'm loving it so far. It's crazy to think that I've been here for almost 3 months. I moved here on Christmas Day, and I'm loving where I live. And I feel like I'm finally I'm getting into the groove of things with, my job and my schedule and things like that. I love my coworkers. They're the best. Julian is our weekend sports anchor and reporter. He's like my brother. Jimmy, one of our sports photogs, like another brother to me already. They honestly feel like family, so that's really great that I feel like that. I feel like I'm still trying to explore everything that San Diego has to offer. It's a little hard, with the pandemic, but things are starting to open up. I'm going to the beach pretty often. I'm still trying to get tan, clearly, so it takes a while for me to get some color, but I'll get there. I am loving it so far. It's been kind of weird, being in a winter where there's no snow and it's not cold ever, but I can't really complain, so.
Right, and as we mentioned, you're a Chicago girl, a big sports city. I want to know, when did you fall in love with sports?
When did I fall in love with sports? I don't know if there was a specific time. I just know that growing up, my dad raised us to be Bears fans, through all of the hard moments, we've just been loyal, and especially with the Payton family, Walter Payton. My dad met him when he was in high school once, and he loved him, and I fell in love with the family too. And so when I was able to, go to Bears games, and now I'm able to call Jared Payton a friend, because I would see him there all the time. And it's crazy how, things work out, and, you fall in love with the Bears, Walter Payton and his family. And now, I know his son, and, they're the sweetest people in the world. And so, that's really kind of how it all started. And then my parents would put my sisters and I in sports. I think I was in cheerleading, dancing, karate. I had to stop karate because I broke my leg, not from karate, but from some other dumb accident. And then I played volleyball for some years, and I had to stop, unfortunately, in high school because I got in a car accident. But then once I went to DePaul University in Chicago, writing about the game was kind of my way of staying in the game. So that was really cool. But that's kind of how it all started.
Right, and I'm sure in college you learned that this isn't a big money-making industry to start off with. Not at all. So
no.
What made you stick with journalism, and specifically sports journalism?
Yeah, so honestly, whenever people ask me, why sports over news, the answer is pretty easy. It's what makes me happy. And not to say that there aren't any sad stories in sports. It's just, typically it is a fun environment, and it's where I'm able to be more of myself. With news, you kind of have to be serious most of the time, and I can be serious, but I'm not serious, all the time. And so it's nice to be able to, show off some of my personality. But I think there were lots of times where, probably like you, I contemplated leaving the industry, just because it is a hard industry to be in. You don't get paid a lot. There are a lot of sleepless nights. You grind it out. But I think just having a really strong support system that was there for me, in those hard times. I would call my parents, call my friends, call my mentors, and they just, tell me, if I wanted to leave, that's fine. But I think hearing my parents being so okay with me leaving the industry, I think just added more motivation of, they seem a little too okay with this. I think I'm just going to keep going with it. I want to make them proud. And I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because it is, to this day, something that makes me truly happy. I'm passionate about it. The day where I don't enjoy it anymore is a day that I know I'm going to have to stop.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, correct me if I'm wrong, your first newsroom gig was as a MMJ, a news anchor, right, in Michigan?
Yes.
So did you feel like you needed to make that transition into news just to get your foot in the door?
Absolutely, yeah. So that was literally the only reason I took it, was because I wanted to do sports from the get-go. But I also knew that it was hard to get a sports position, especially at a local news station. There aren't a lot of those jobs available around the country. And then also being a female, you don't get a lot of those opportunities. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to take this job. It's on a morning show. I'm able to show off more of my personality. I'll get lots of live shot reps because I literally went live every single weekday. And so I took the job, and it was a great experience. I grew a lot. I started out as a morning live shot reporter, MMJ. I think it was for like 6 months, and then the last 6 months they promoted me to anchor, and I got some anchoring experience there. It was a great place to grow. It was my first time not living in Illinois. It was 7 to 8 hours, I think, driving. So I made that trip quite often. But it was a good experience. So I was able to do that. And then obviously after that, I went to Rockford, and I was super close to home, covering, my hometown sports teams. So that was really cool. And now being in San Diego, it's interesting because the day that my family left, I was like really sad about it, like that whole day. And then every day after that, I've been fine. I'm like, I think I needed that space from them, at least for a little bit. But I'm loving it here. It honestly feels like a second home. So.
Yeah, and trust me, I know all about that space. When I left my family to go to Minnesota, I was like crying, and then after I was like, ooh, living alone? All right, sign me up.
Great.
Right, yes. But like you mentioned, you were able to go back home to your home state, Illinois, and work in Rockford, covering all your teams. But did you feel at that moment like this was your dream job, since you had that opportunity to do this work in your home state?
Honestly, part of it, it really felt like a dream job. It wasn't like the dream. I think as you get older, you are able to kind of change your dreams and your goals. And I think doing it in that way was something that helped me fulfill, part of those dreams. I got to cover the Bears. Like, that is still so surreal to me. Growing up, not even being able to afford a ticket to go to a game. And then I would go to games. I would go to Hallis Hall every week to cover these guys. And then being able to do that in English and Spanish meant so much to me. Growing up myself, I didn't see a lot of Latinas doing sports on TV. I didn't know that was an option until I got older. By doing that, I'm able to let younger girls see that it is an option, that it's something that they could do if they want to do it. It was definitely a dream, just being able to cover them, to cover Fred VanVleet's and, all these big stars, and seeing how humble they are. I'm sure, I think one of the best parts of this job is the people that you meet and the relationships that you're able to keep with them. People that you interview years ago, you still keep in touch with them, and you're able to see them grow and see where they end up. And I just love that.
Yeah, and you brought up something that I find so impressive, the fact that you report bilingually for sports in that small market. When you first started doing that, how was it received? Did you get a lot of support?
Yeah, so it's funny because that station actually used to have a Spanish newscast. And then they got rid of it, I guess, shortly after I got there. And they weren't thinking about bringing it back. But I was like, hey, I really, I know that there's a big Latino audience here. I'm able to speak Spanish. Can I do this? And they were like, yeah, sure. Why not? You can do it for a web digital series or something. And so, it was received pretty well. I don't think I got any hate from that. The hate that I did get, though, was when I would do my sportscast and I would pronounce names with a Spanish accent, the way they're supposed to be said. And I got some emails and letters talking about how, I shouldn't do that. I'm in America and I should speak with an English accent. It was just ridiculous. So I would say that was really the only time where me speaking Spanish bothered some people. But I was like, it's fine. Somebody's always going to have something to say. And, at the end of the day, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong, and they're probably just jealous because they can't speak more than the one language. So.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of haters, there's a lot of aspiring journalists, sports journalists in the Latinx community. What words of advice do you have for them, since you've experienced those things already in your career? What words of advice do you have to kind of help them believe that they could stick this journey through?
Yeah, I would say lean on your support system. Make sure that you have a very strong support system, whether that's with your family, with your friends, your mentors, because they are going to be with you through everything. And when those hate letters come in, you know, you got to talk to somebody. Otherwise it's going to like eat you alive, and you really have to have thick skin. Not to say that you're not allowed to, you know, be emotional about it. Some days it's going to get to you. That's perfectly normal. But you need people to talk to about those sort of things, and they're going to remind you, you know, at the end of the day, you're doing something that you love and you're doing it well. You know, you're there for a reason. And, you know, those people will help you brush it off. For as hard as it may seem in the beginning, when you read those letters for the first time, it's just like, wow, somebody had time today. But, you know, you'll get through it.
Yeah. And, you know, you were able to complete that contract in your home state, but unfortunately that was during the pandemic. You know, a lot of people face that moment where they're ending a contract or moving on to something new in their life in the middle of the pandemic. So there was some downtime between your job in Rockford and where you are now. How gut-wrenching and nerve-wracking was that period of time?
Oh my gosh, it was tough, you know, because it was the second time actually that I came home technically without a job. So the first time was after my first job. I left with interviews lined up and everything, and I would do side jobs and everything, but I didn't have like that full-time job again. And so the first time I came home, I felt like a failure because you know, when you graduate from college and you come back home, you're just like, oh my gosh, this isn't how it's supposed to be. You know, you're supposed to leave, not come home. And so that second time when I did come home, I took a risk by not taking an extension that the station offered me because I wanted to keep growing. And yes, like you said, we're in a pandemic and it was risky, but I just had to, you know, believe in myself and just kind of take a risk. And yeah, it was hard. I had to do side jobs again, you know, babysitting, things like that, but I got through it. And eventually, you know, I was able to find this opportunity. And it's funny because this speaks to how important networking is. So I messaged our weekend sports guy, Julian, on Instagram to ask him if they were still hiring for this job. And he's like, yeah, here's my news director's email. I emailed the news director, I think that same night, and he got back to me super fast. And so, you know, the rest is history from there. But in those times, you know, another example, you have to lean on your support system. So many times where I was just like, maybe I should leave this industry. Maybe I should just go do like PR, you know, it pays way more. But yeah, something just kept telling me like, I got to keep going. You know, I didn't want to settle. That was another thing, was that I didn't want to just take any opportunity, even though, you know, there weren't a lot of jobs available during the pandemic. And even now, you know, I didn't want to just take whatever job that was offered to me and then be miserable at it. You know, I think my parents have sacrificed a lot for me to be where I am today. And I think that would have been like a slap in the face, you know, if I would just taken anything, because they wanted me to go to college, to get a job that I was happy doing, that I was passionate about, that I enjoyed. And so it was really important to me to pick a job where I felt like I was going to be able to grow, where I was going to be happy. And right now, that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, so the wait was totally worth it. And I mean,
absolutely.
You have like more than 100 markets, which is pretty much an Olympic sport in our industry. You know, college professors would tell you that's not the way it's going to happen. You're going to have to take these jobs. But you were able to do it. Did you ever imagine you were able to pull something like this off?
Girl, I didn't even think I was going to be doing TV. Like, you know, if you would have told me in high school that I would be on TV talking about sports every day, I'd be like, you're crazy. And so now to be able to do this, it's like I surprise myself every day with what I'm able to do. So to be here, I think we're market number 29 or something like that. I'm just like, wow, like I'm really here. But you know, I don't know. I just know that I'm very blessed and I feel very lucky to be where I am and do what I do. And so I try never, ever to take it for granted, just because I know that it could be taken away from me at any second. And so, yeah, I work hard every day and I try to make my parents proud. And yeah.
You already accomplished so much, right? You already accomplished so much in a short amount of time, and you're just now settling into your new gig. But I want to ask you, what's on your vision board for Samantha Rivera a few years from now, in the future?
Oh my gosh, a few years from now. I would say, I don't know. I think it's good to dream big. So I would say I see myself maybe in LA or Chicago. So Chicago's obviously like the goal. I want to go back home. I want to be by family so that I could start my own family hopefully one day. But yeah, in a few years I would see myself there. Maybe working for a network. Who knows what's in the future, but definitely my end goal would be to be doing 30 for 30. So I would love to do longer forms storytelling, and just kind of focus on that. So I would love to be more behind the scenes, producing, writing, doing more research. Being on camera is fun too, but really behind the scenes stuff is where like I get really giddy, and like the editing process and everything, I love it so much. So yeah, hopefully in a few years you'll see me somewhere in LA and Chicago, but we'll see.
I will definitely continue to watch, and I am rooting for you.
Thank you.
We're rooting for you each and every step of the way. Thank you so much for your time. You were so inspirational.
Absolutely.
I needed to hear every word you said. So thank you for joining me for this episode of Sideline Stories. And guys, I'll be back next Friday with more content and more amazing stories. Thank you for tuning in.